Chasca is easy to play. You press kill and hold your attack button. Right? Well, actually that is not true. Or I should say, that is not true if you're willing to learn a few techs together with me in this new episode of 7 advanced tips for every Chasca main. What if I told you that this bull account is a lie, that Chasca can attack more often and increase her total damage by up to 17%, or that she can technically trade some of her survivability for damage? As always in this kind of videos, we skip the basics so that we can talk directly about more niche details and ways to push the potential of a character. But anyway, let's start with the most game-changing tip that somehow nobody's talking about. If I hold my attack button and simply fire off my charge attacks, I will get 4 of them with 6 bullets each. And in the end, I can squeeze one last charge attack with only 1 bullet, which will result in an extra Nemo hit that, as you probably know, does very low damage. Chasca's real damage happens when she is able to convert to Pyro, Hydro, Electro, Cryo. But the reality is that this UI that tells us how many bullets we have is not completely accurate. I say that because there is a timing in which, even if a bullet doesn't show as active, it is still shot. As you can see in the slow-mo, I released the attack button at the 5th bullet. The 6th one is not there yet. But when we go count how many were actually fired, it's not 5, but 6. We charged less, but still got the full damage. So what if we did this for every charger attack? The result is that for each one, we save a little bit of time, and now the last attack can possibly get up to 5 bullets. So we're going from 4 charge attacks with 6 bullets each, plus 1 with 1 bullet, to 4 charge attacks with 6 bullets again, and then 1 with 5. Although realistically the last one is more likely to be 3 or 4 bullets. Since we get more elemental conversion, we're simply increasing her raw multipliers by up to 17%, which is a massive damage increase and can be compared to an upgrade in your build. And I'm not even counting for the extra reactions you would also get. Of course, we have to be careful to not cancel it too fast, but I want to emphasize that this tech works even if you fire off as soon as you see the last bullet. You don't have to be frame perfect. Any extra time you get is extra time that can be spent on the last charged attack. So to recap, instead of just holding for the entire duration, as soon as you see the last bullet being charged, or a bit before, you release and start charging again. As long as you don't mess it up, you are just increasing your damage. A way to make this more consistent is our next tip. When you use her skill, you can kind of decide Chasca's height. If you wait, she's going to go up all the way she can. But in putting an action, like dashing or attacking, in the middle of the ascending animation, will stop her from going higher. This makes her start attacking a bit before, which will help us get even more damage out of her time-gated DPS window. However, it also achieves something else I want to point out. I know it might be a bit of a rare pick, but a character that actually kind of needs this tech is Diona. You see, sometimes talents that are placed on the ground, like Diona's burst, have a height limit, after which they will simply stop working. As you can tell from the clip where Diona is not healing me. On a flat ground, this does not happen generally. However, characters like Chasca or Wanderer get easily pushed by enemies a bit higher than they would normally be at. And if that happens, not only Diona is not healing us, but she's also not giving us her C6 buff. And I'm sure you guys are wondering, but don't worry, Bennett's burst does not have a height limit. Actually, fun fact, Bennett also works the other way around. So if you happen to be below his burst, it still works, as long as you are in the circle. Think about it as a cylinder rather than a circle. But of course I also want to point out that being higher than your opponent can be an advantage, as there are less attacks that can hit you. Now, I want to use one of these tips to say that the combo of Bennett plus Furina have been plaguing this game for almost every attack scaler that gets introduced. Chasca is not different, and it really limits the amount of teams that can be played in an hypothetical second team. Especially for the many of you that decide to double down on the buffers and even use Chilonen, which as a non-pack character still works very well for Chasca. But can we break the Furina Bennett core? Well, the other day, someone from my community sent me a video from a creator on Bilibili that showcased a team without Bennett that I found to be very interesting. But for that, I need to give you some context. My favorite team for Chasca has been Bennett, Furina and Ororan. Simply because it's strong and it makes me play both the new units together. But this team has a problem. Chasca is a character that can apply multiple elements, but she's bound to a hidden rule that most of you know as internal cooldown. In case you don't know, very simply, her hits apply the elements for reactions or auras every 2 hits, meaning that a rainbow team like mine will trigger a reaction just with the 4th and 6th bullet. The second one is also able to do so, but it's an emo at C0, which means it's just gonna swirl. In a Furina plus Autoron team, your enemy is very likely under their 2 elements, so each time your Pyro Bullets ends up with the 4th or 6th slot, it can trigger Vaporize and Overload. But every time it is on the 5th slot, you trigger no reactions. You might take ownership of Electrocharged, but that's not a big deal. So what if instead we inverted things? What if we had a Pyro Aura and used it to guarantee that we melt or vaporize? Or maybe even both in a single charger attack. And that's what a Shanling, Furina and Charlotte team could achieve. In this team, no matter what order our bullets randomly generate in, each charge attack will result in a reverse melt or forward vaporize. If you're lucky, it can even result in both. That happens when we get the bullets in this order, as it triggers a melt first and the rest of the aura can be used for a vaporize. But since Furina is also there, this is not happening very often. By utilizing a Shanling tech, which simply explained makes Pyronado hit more often if we rotate above the enemy in a counterclockwise motion, we make sure Pyro is almost always on the enemy. But unfortunately, we have to dismantle this team a bit. On paper, having guaranteed Vaporize or Melt and Trilling Tails could make up for the loss of Bennett, but the energy cost of the entire team is just very heavy, so it might not be for everyone. Running Charlotte without Trilling Tails makes her lose a lot of value, but will probably fix any energy issue. This team can be done with Diona, giving us arguably less buffs and less fanfare for Furina, but definitely an easier time on the energy side. She also unfortunately could still melt, but it should rarely happen. All of this trouble would be just to free up Bennett for a second team, but we're still bound to another very common Pyro unit. Maybe the future has units that can help, next patch literally has a Pyro Archon and a Cryo unit, but we will see. As you know, I don't cover unreleased content. And I still want to leave you with a general tip, which is to give Chasca as much off-field damage and buffs that you can, of course. If Bennett and or Furina are not available to you, try to use a Catalyst support for Trilling Tails or general buffs like Noblesse, Tenacity, Scrolls, etc. We still have 2 more tips to cover, and while I remind you to support the video if you found something helpful so far, for the next one, since this is an advanced video for people that main Chasca, I think covering one tech for her C2 is worth the time. You see, the second constellation is an AoE hit each time a charge attack is shot and contains at least 1 elemental bullet. This AoE has a multiplier of 400% of Chasca's attack. Now here's where it gets interesting. In a single target scenario, nothing changes for Chasca. Go up to 6 bullets and get some extra damage. However, in AoE, especially above 2 enemies, Chasca now wants to not charge attack all the way up to 6 bullets, and instead stop earlier. You could argue that the more you charge, the less overall damage you will do, as you can see in the chart where I'm simply counting your motion values. This of course can be coupled with the techs I explained earlier. My last tip will include a few smaller details that are frequently asked while I talk over an updated version of our weapon calcs. Amos Bow is the weapon I heard people discuss the most, and that's a good option, even with the presence of Bennett in the team. But the second part of its passive does not work. Chasca's attacks are hit scan, so they're not projectiles and they don't have any travel time. And this also means that once marked, an enemy will be hit no matter their or your position, even if you're not looking at them anymore. The new 4-star gacha weapon, which name I can't pronounce, is pretty insane and is able to get and maintain full stacks by the second charge attack. I had it way underlooked in my guide video. It's actually on par or better than most 5-star weapons at high refinements. Additionally, Chasca is a character that has some interruption resistance while in her skill stance, and it can be stacked with other talents, although there are not that many available to her. She also has a particular immunity to freeze and bubbles from Hydra Abyss mages. And finally, I want to note that Chasca might have issues playing on lower FPS or higher ping, but I'm already very late with this video, so that will take me some more time. You can join my Discord for updates, link below. Thank you so much for watching, stay tuned because a huge patch is coming and I hope to be able to cover the new characters. Like and sub if this was helpful, and see you in the next video.